Hi everybody, it's Danny here from Angel Handmade Papercraft. Today I am working with Whimsy stamps, and this little gorgeous dude is from the April 2020 release. This is Breezy Yellow Daisy. So super cute image. I've got him printed onto some Express It blending card, just using my Brother laser printer. I'm just running him through my Big Shot using a Lawn Fawn stitched oval die. And I decided I wanted to use my zig markers. Now this is not the best paper to be, or cardstock I should say, to be using with zig markers. It's not watercolor paper, but if you're very careful and you're not laying down, quite a lot of color, it worked out well for me. I don't know where any of my watercolor paper is. It's all probably stashed in a box from when we moved 3 years ago. I don't know, but I made do. Look, I was happy to throw it out if it didn't work, but I wanted to try something different. So I have pulled out my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. I will have all of them listed on my blog if you'd like to follow along and use the same markers that I have. I've got all the names and numbers written down on my blog, so you can check those out there. So I'm just working my way through. I am no perfectionist with these. I haven't really given them too much of a chance to do their best work. I'm sure that there's probably a lot more that they can do, so please don't leave any nasty comments saying anything else. I'm doing my best. So it's a new medium for me. I've only used them a couple of times, and yeah, just making do. So I didn't use any water with these markers. I'm literally just blending them with themselves, and yeah, that's that. So we're going to color everything in. I'm just using a dark grey marker and a black marker to colour the little nose. And we're going to go in and start colouring the little dog. So here's where it took a little bit more effort to get him coloured up. I haven't had to really sit down and play with these very much, so I don't have any swatches or anything like that. And so I literally just grabbed 3 brown markers out of the pack, and that's what I'm using. So, like I said, I'm just doing blender marker blending, no water. So I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. I'm, super, they worked really well. I'm really happy with them. Yeah, so if you haven't tried them, give them a try. I've got the big sets linked up on my blog, but if you, follow those shops to the big set, you can then probably go down and change the size of the set. But I am using the big set today, so I don't know what colors are available in the smaller sets, but you can find other colors to blend with anyway. So I've just laid down the lightest color just because it was such a big area to try and blend, and then I'm going to work my way back darkest to lightest and blend it all through. So I did try and do a little bit of flicking. I didn't lose too much of that when I went through and blended, which is good. And I'm trying to work on one area at a time. So anything that isn't sort of I joined into that area, I've left, and I'll go back in and do that shortly. I do have lots of different other mediums. I really don't have the time to sit down and trial them all and swatch them all and work out, the best way to use my pencils and things like that. I would love to. I just, things are just crazy all the time at the moment. As you know, my husband and I have a few kids between us. So between all of that, homework, and I've got a job as well, and, life. How dare life get in the way of my crafting time? But sometimes it does. So I hope to be using these markers a little bit more and showing you guys what they can do. Maybe bringing in some water and things if I can find my watercolor paper. I don't want to be adding too much water to this cardstock. As I said, it's not watercolor. It's just normal blending card. Alright, so we're just about finished colouring in our little doggy, and then I'm going to play with the ground a little bit more. There was more that I wanted to do to it, so I added some little rosy cheeks onto my puppy, and I will blend that back out with the brown marker so they're not so defined and standing out on his face. So pulling all of that into the center. And then I'm just going back over his body quickly just to make sure that everything is all nice and blended out. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start trying to blend this grass a little bit more down to the bottom of the oval. It is quite a large area to try and blend, so I am going to add in some of my own grass elements. And then we'll go back in and blend it all again. So I'm just using a flicking motion with both of my greens, adding in some grounding to the grass so that you can see, and it all blends in nicely. So now that there's a little bit more color laid down, it made it a little bit easier to blend it. So I do go in and do a lot of that. So that's my image all colored up. I'm going to go in and add some white gel pen details. I think white gel pen, it just finishes off an image. So I really love using my white gel pens. I actually need to top up on those soon. I think one of mine is getting a little low. Alright, so we're all coloured. Let's move on to putting the card together. So the papers that I'm going to be using are from the Papercraft Cockle-Doodle-Doo 6.5 inch pad. Matting that with some American Crafts cardstocks. I'm just cutting all of those down on my Caterpillar Pro, which is next to me at the moment. I'm working on the front of my card and the inside of my card at the same time. This is generally what I do unless I don't really have a plan for the inside of the card yet. So I like to cut all of my cardstocks and papers down at the same time. So we've got a Kucha Creations card base there, and I'm just lining everything up so I can start working out what I'm going to do. So in this paper pad there is some gorgeous clouds and some field type papers, so I'm going to trim those down and I'm going to join those pretty much at the center of my card. And thankfully the way that this image is cut, it covers up the line of the join perfectly, and you can't even see that there is a join between the two papers. So I really love that, worked out well, and it also saved me some paper to do the inside of the card as well. So I did think about just adhering one over the top of the other, but then I decided to trim them down and save myself some extras. So there they are, completely covered. I pulled out a Welcome to the Neighborhood sentiment from the Tailored Expressions Simple Strips dies, stamps and dies. So I did stamp that onto some American Crafts cardstock with ink on 3 embossing ink, used some Ranger white embossing powder, and then melted it with my heat tool. And then I used the matching dies to trim it out. So I'm using some Helmer acid-free adhesive in the background there, adhering everything down. At this moment I wasn't sure if the card was complete, so I ended up grabbing my favorite things Puffy Clouds dies. They're my favorite cloud dies. And I also grabbed it's a very old die set from My Favorite Things called Sun, Moon and Stars, and I just partial cut the sun, just using some white cardstock. I couldn't find any yellow, and I'm just quickly colouring it using my Copic markers. It is Express It blending card, so the markers did blend nicely, and then smoothing it out with my lightest yellow marker. I'm going to add that to the left corner of my card, and then I'll just trim off the excess once I'm happy with it. So quickly adhering all of those clouds down. Super happy with the way that this card turned out. It's so good when you can sit down and make a card and then you look at it and it just makes you so happy. So I'm just trimming off all the excess bits. Adding some Wink of Stella. You can't go wrong with some Wink of Stella. Being very careful on the flower because there is white gel pen on there, and then on his nose as well. So we're going to adhere that down to the Kucha Creations card base, making sure that everything is nice and straight, and then we'll start working on the inside of the card. So I'm using the leftover clouds. In those grassy fields as well. Now, because it's the middle of the card, you could actually see the center line. So I did have to work something out to be able to cover that up. So you will see me work on that shortly. Now, as you can see in the left-hand corner there is a whole lot of clouds and stars and moons and everything else. Usually when I run a die, things like this especially, through my Big Shot, I try to run it through a few times, so I've got a few leftovers to use on another project. I just went a little die cutting happy. Alright, so I didn't want to be able to see the line, so I'm just going in with some ribbon and some Helma fabric glue, and I'm going to wrap that around the center of the card, smooth it out, add here on the back, and then trim it down. Alright, so once all that's dry, making sure there's no adhesive anywhere, adding on a white rectangle to the center so that people can write in the card. I'll add some Helma acid-free liquid adhesive to the back of this, and then I'll adhere it to the center of the card. So I'm just going in, because I had so many extra clouds, I'm just going to add some of those to the center of the card as well. It gives it a nice flow when things flow from the front to the inside. So now we're going to pop it to the inside of the card, and that will be my card complete. So I thank you all for watching. Here's a few photos of the card put together, and I hope to see you all soon. Bye!